Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Music Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and I am happy to be with you on another episode of the Music Podcast on a Monday. It's good alliteration, right? Music on a Monday. Our first story, I'm just going to jump right in. Our first story is only peripherally related to music news, but it's so ridiculous and hilarious that I have to share. And it's so peripherally related to music news because it is about Justin Bieber, but it is not about music and Justin Bieber. It is about Justin Bieber calling out Tom Cruise recently on social media. Now, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. It's I don't know if it's frequent, but it's been known to happen before. But on Sunday night, Justin Bieber took to Twitter to challenge actor Tom Cruise to a fight. No idea what prompted this. He actually challenged Tom Cruise to an actual fight in the octagon. We know it's in the octagon because he even tagged UFC president Dana White in the challenge tweet. No one really seems to know why this happened, but that, of course, doesn't mean that people aren't now having fun with it. Okay, so this is where it gets even more peripheral because the other people took to tweeting out challenges, including Brent Spiner, who you may not immediately recognize his name, but he played Data on Star Trek The Next Generation. He went on Twitter to call out his own possible fight. And, well, he didn't call out Tom Cruise. He called out Angela Lansbury. If you are of a certain generation, that will be hilarious to you. If you are of a generation that doesn't know who Angela Lansbury is, she is the voice of Mrs. Potts in the animated version of Beauty and the Beast. She was in a show in the 80s called Murder, She Wrote, where she was a novelist and she solved murders. She solved murders. She did a lot of Disney movies in the 60s. And she's just sort of the quintessential nice little old lady. And I don't know why Brent Spiner called her out, although it's funny. I don't know. Maybe she could take him. I really don't know. But even funnier then, to follow up with that, Dick Van Dyke came to her defense and said that he would fight Brent Spiner in her stead. Dick Van Dyke, of course, from Mary Poppins and many, many other movies. This is where it's also music because he, Angela Lansbury as well. They both sing and they have both sung on music. So here is Brent Spiner's original tweet. I would like to challenge Angela Lansbury to fight me in the octagon. If you back down, Angela, you are scared. And everyone will know it. Who will put up the money for this? It just makes me laugh. So then Dick Van Dyke came to her defense. No word on whether Angela Lansbury even has a Twitter account. I don't know. Conor McGregor got in on the action as well. He is former UFC featherweight and lightweight champion, and he's always calling people out. But he said that he would host the Bieber-Cruise fight if Cruise would accept the challenge. He also went on to challenge Mark Wahlberg on the same card. Supernatural star Jared Padalecki also got in on this situation. retweeting Bieber's original challenge with the joke that he might be needing to borrow a Tom Cruise mask for unrelated reasons, of course. Oh, wow. So, who do you think would win in a fight between Justin Bieber and Tom Cruise? Who do you think would win in a fight between Brent Spiner, Angela Lansbury, and or Dick Van Dyke? I don't know. That's just funny. And who do you think would win in a fight between Conor McGregor and Mark Wahlberg? Twitter is weird. I just have to say that, but it's at least relatively entertaining sometimes. So that is my first story. In other news, we're going to turn to the world of hip-hop for our next two stories. The first story is that the Notorious, Notorious B.I.G. officially has gotten his own Brooklyn street name. The corner of Fulton Street and St. James Place is now known as Christopher Wallace Way. Brooklyn is his hometown, and he now has that street named after him. The city held a renaming ceremony for the corner of Fulton Street and St. James Place in Clinton Hill, which is now known as Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace Way. Lil' Kim spoke during the ceremony in honor of the late rapper. Biggie's mother, New York City Council member Lori Kumbo, rapper Lil Cease, and other friends and fans were also at the ceremony. The renaming petition was approved by the Brooklyn Community Board and Mayor Bill de Blasio last November. Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace Way arrives after years of efforts to rename the street. Due to the violent nature of his music, the memoriam met resistance from the city. I think it's... For me, my first comment is it's really hard to say Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace Way. And if you live on it, you're going to have to write that out on your address. That's crazy. So anyway, that's my own. It's going to be a really long street sign, too. There is BET tweeted a video of Christopher Wallace's mother. I don't know. Do you call him Christopher Wallace? Do you call him Notorious B.I.G.? Whatever. There is a picture. It looks like it was raining, but there is a picture, and BET tweeted today the corner of St. James and Fulton in Brooklyn was just renamed Christopher Wallace Way. Maybe they're just calling it. Oh, the street sign says Christopher Wallace Way. Nope, there's another street sign that says Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace Way. So much. So much. Leroy Live says it was all a dream in August 2013 and now it is a reality. Hashtag Christopher Wallace Way. Shout out to family, friends, and fans of Big plus all supporters. Hashtag Think Big. Congratulations on that. Congratulations to his family on the renaming of the street. And I am curious to see if people are going to actually call it that or if they're just going to keep calling it what it has been calling it or if they're going to shorten it to something because... You know, that's what people do, and that's a really long street name that I keep coming back to. Our next story is somewhat related, at least in terms of a segue that I am not going to make. I'm just going to jump into it, and that is that former LAPD cop Greg Kading is set to reveal never-before-known details, that's a quote, relating to the unsolved murders of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, also known as Biggie Smalls. The retired detective, who is 56, will host a national tour in Australia for his new show, The Murders of Tupac and Biggie, A Night with Greg Kading. Greg, whose book inspired popular NBC, Universal, and Netflix true crime drama series about the legendary rappers, kicks off the tour in Brisbane on July 26th. So that's about, 6 weeks from now? The high-profile cases have remained mysteries for over 20 years, but Greg has previously claimed that he has solved them. He was the lead detective on the investigative task force for the infamous Biggie and Tupac cases and wrote the book Murder Rap shortly after his retirement in 2010. Interesting. So Greg has previously claimed that Grammy Award-winning artist Sean P. Diddy Combs was responsible for hiring a killer to shoot Tupac in a drive-by in 1996. Both Diddy from New York and Tupac in Los Angeles had been caught up in a bitter rivalry between East and West Coast rappers, the Huffington Post reports. Biggie, who was a close friend of P. Diddy, was shot dead 6 months later in a revenge killing, according to Greg, who once led a special task force that investigated the shootings. Kading also claims in a new documentary that Diddy hired Crips gang member Dwayne Keith Keffy D. Davis to kill Shakur and his manager Marion Hugh Suge Knight for $1 million. Anyway, interesting. So the documentary, Murder Rap, features a 2008 interview with Keffy where he claims to have heard Diddy declare in a room full of Crips members that he'd give anything for Pac and Suge Knight's head. Tickets cost 44 Australian dollars. I'm not sure what, AUD at any rate. And the tour will begin in Brisbane, then move to Melbourne, Sydney, and Perth. And you can purchase tickets online. It's just interesting to me. Interesting that we are still fascinated by this. We're always fascinated by unsolved murders, but just, some things Tupac, much like Elvis, there's people claim to have seen him. People claim that he's not dead, and it just sort of goes on. And I wonder if this man, Greg Kading, has anything new to report, or if he's just kind of milking it for all it's worth. At any rate, he's got a tour, and good for him. And if you're interested, you can get tickets. You have to go to Australia, but you can go to Australia and get tickets. So we are going to take our first break of the podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking about LA Pride and some other music news. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Music Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about a bunch of stuff, street names and unsolved murders and all those good things. We're moving on to some different news now, and that is that, of course, June is Pride Month, and LA Pride happened over the weekend. There were some stars there to celebrate. There were some celebrity sightings, as well as stars who were there as part of the event. Last year's LA Pride Festival saw around 170,000 participants and spectators, and this year's spectacular seems like it's going to top that. This was yesterday, June 9th, and Meghan Trainor and Paula Abdul were there to help kick off the event. They performed before the parade began. This is the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City, which marked the birth of the Pride movement in the United States. The first LA Pride parade happened a year later in 1970, and now, nearly a half century after Stonewall, LA Pride was a way for the community to celebrate the progress it has made towards equality, while also acknowledging that there is a lot more work left to be done. Phil Wilson, who is the founder of the Black AIDS Institute, he's a community activist and the parade's community grand marshal, said in a statement, "The LGBTQI community has come a long way in the last 50 years. It has not been without heartache, pain, sacrifice, and growth. I am humbled to be among such a powerful and diverse group of grand marshals. Together we represent how much stronger we are when we celebrate all of what we are." The Los Angeles LGBT Center was also named as the organizational grand marshal for LA Pride 2019, and actor-writer Ryan O'Connell was named the celebrity grand marshal. So Meghan Trainor was there. She performed. She and Paula Abdul performed before the parade kicked off. Other people who were at the festival British electronic pop trio Years and Years headline the extravaganza, and the festival's lineup includes Ashanti, Christian Castro, Pablo Vittar, The Drums, Dej Loaf, The Veronicas, Amara La Negra, Grayson Chance, MNEK, Amara Sue, and more. Festival hosts include Billy Francesca, Arichi Wanzer, Jessica Wilde, Kimora Black, and Alicia Machado. Celebrity sightings included Kehlani and Tove Lo, Christina Aguilera, who was a surprise appearance, U.S. Representative Maxine Waters, the cast of Netflix's Sense8. That's quite a lot of people. Just to name a few who were among the thousands who were celebrating with the LGBT plus community. I will just throw in here that Meghan Trainor's outfit is crazy, but on point. It is very bright. It's actually not as bright as Taylor Swift's outfit was, and I talked about that in a previous episode. But it's very bright, very rainbow colored, which is appropriate. It has 3 layers of tulle in the back, so it's a leotard. Do we call them leotards anymore? At any rate, a leotard with what looks like fishnet stockings, and then these 3 layers of tulle in red, orange, and yellow cascading down the back. It's quite bright. Paula Abdul doesn't look quite as bright, but she still looks good. So LA Pride was this weekend, and Pride Month goes throughout the month of June, and we celebrate diversity and appreciate that. Speaking of celebrating, Celine Dion is wrapping up and probably celebrating her residency at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. She did her finale on Saturday. She is quoted as saying, "I'm both proud and humbled by what we've accomplished at the Coliseum since we began 16 years ago when Renee and I first shared this dream." She said this in a statement that was released by Caesars Entertainment. She goes on, "This entire experience has been a huge part of my show business career, one that I will cherish forever. I have so many people to thank, but the most important thank you goes to my fans who gave us the opportunity to do what we love." The show began in 2003 and was seen by 4.5 million fans over the course of 1,141 performances. She did 2 residencies, one starting in March of 2003, ending in December of 2007. That was 717 shows. And then her second premiered in March of 2011. Saturday's finale featured the debut of Dion's new song, Flying on My Own. This is from her new album, Courage, which is due for release in November. Dion mentioned Renee, and that was in reference to her husband and manager, who died in 2016 after battling throat cancer. He and Celine Dion were married for 22 years prior to his death. So congratulations on that, and I am sure that she will enjoy promoting her new album and whatever it is that she is going on to do. It's not like we have to worry about her not being successful. I don't think we have to worry about that. She is Celine Dion, and she does have a set of pipes on her. Moving on to our next story, and that is that Elvis Costello has been awarded the O.B.E. honor for services to music. He, the title of Officer of the Order of the British Empire was awarded to him for his contributions to music as part of the annual Queen's Birthday Honors list. He's quoted as saying, "I am happy to accept this very surprising honor," he wrote in a statement on Friday. "To be honest, I'm pretty tickled to receive this acknowledgement for my, quote, services to music, as it confirms my long-held suspicion nobody really listens to the words in songs, or the outcome might have been somewhat different." In a post on his website, he wrote about his reaction upon first receiving the letter and how he was initially going to turn down the honor. Now, former Prime Minister Theresa May recommended Costello for the award. He writes, "I have to admit that my first reaction upon receiving the letter was, oh no, they finally tumbled me. For those of you who enjoy irony, I was standing in my dressing room at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre at the time." That's Vancouver, British Columbia, you know. The pink has stained the map all over the world. However, upon notifying his mother, Lillian McManus, of the O.B.E., Costello reconsidered his stance. I began my call by telling my ma'am that the Prime Minister, Mrs. May, had put my name forward for an O.B.E. But she's rubbish, Lillian cut in before I could complete the news. Well, that aside, I said, of course, I won't be accepting the award. I didn't get much farther than that statement either. I listened carefully to my mother's argument that if something is deserved, then one must be gracious in acceptance. Costello went on to explain that his two grandfathers were both soldiers who were injured during wartime. His maternal grandfather spent 3 years in a POW camp during World War II, while his paternal grandfather, a bugler, was missing, presumed dead, in Imperial India before he was found in a military hospital and sent home. Costello said, I can't say that the future and fortunes offered to such men upon their return home were anything more than an insult to add to their physical, mental, and spiritual injuries. You had to make your own luck then, but that's the way it's been ever since. 100 years have passed and the British Empire doesn't exist anymore, but our family is still thriving and playing music. So it is in memory of those two British Army soldiers, and because my ma'am told me to do it, that I can proudly accept this award. Well, that just shows that you should always honor your roots. You should always remember those who went before you, and you should always listen to your mama. We're going to take our second break of the podcast. Stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Music Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Music Podcast. We have some more stories involving the world of music. We move on to the next story, which is that Colbie Caillat's new country band, Gone West, has dropped a debut single, What Could Have Been. I did not know that Colbie Caillat had a new country band, so that's news to me. She has partnered with 3 longtime collaborators to form the new country group Gone West. The band is made up of 2-time Grammy-winning singer Caillat, singer-songwriter Jason Reeves, ACM and CMT nominee Nellie Joy, and Hawaiian Music Award winner Justin Bieber. And they have released their debut country single, What Could Have Been. It has 4-part harmonies. There is, and this article calls it a captivating storyline. What Could Have Been is a stripped-down ballad of love lost. There's delicate acoustic guitar, pedal steel, and percussion accompaniment that flesh out the track, while Caillat's familiar vocals shine alongside harmonies from Reeves, Joy, and Young. Caillat is quoted as telling people it's about 2 people that maybe let their relationship fall apart, and then they think back years later on what they could have done differently, and maybe they would have still been together. So it's kind of an open-ended mystery. The group is signed to Triple Tigers, which is an independent label that includes Scotty McCreery and Russell Dickerson. Gone West's debut single is scheduled to impact radio on July 15th. The band made their CMA Fest debut this past weekend, as well as recently performing at the Grand Ole Opry. If you want to hear that new song, you can go online and listen. I myself did listen to it as I was preparing for the podcast. I really like Colbie Caillat, so I was excited to see her in a new collaboration. Not always the biggest country music fan, but I don't hate it or anything. It's just not my go-to genre all the time. This is kind of your basically typical sounding country song in many ways. There's the themes of heartache and loss, and there's the steel guitar, so kind of traditional country sounds. Colbie sounds like Colbie. She sounds great. I think my favorite part of the song, though, are the times with the 4-part harmonies. Those harmonies are really dense, really rich, and definitely my favorite part of that collaboration. So again, the new group is called Gone West, and the new song is called What Could Have Been, and that is Colbie Caillat's new country group. We are moving on to some sadder news of the podcast, and though there have been some deaths in the music industry this week, Bushwick Bill of the Houston rap group Geto Boys has died. He was 52. His publicist confirmed that he died on Sunday evening in Colorado, and the cause was not given pending a medical examination, but the rapper was diagnosed earlier this year with pancreatic cancer. He was born Richard Shaw in Kingston, Jamaica. He moved to Bushwick, Brooklyn as a young child, hence his rap name. He relocated in Houston, where he first joined the Rap-A-Lot Records assembled group in the early to mid-'80s as a breakdancer and hype man. But as members came and went, he found his way to the mic. He is known for his brash persona and performative storytelling. Bill's unhinged, engaging bars on Geto Boys classics like A War, Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and Mind of a Lunatic were central to the group carving out its place as a pioneering Southern rap unit in the late 80s and early 90s. He was also a solo artist. He released 6 solo albums from 1992 to 2010. And Geto Boys reunited for a 2005 album, The Foundation. In 2019, on the heels of his cancer diagnoses, the members announced they were planning a farewell tour to be called The Beginning of a Long Goodbye, The Final Farewell. The tour was later canceled, though, due to Bill pulling out of performance dates. So that is sad news for fans of that group and fans of Bushwick Bill. My husband is the one that really introduced me to the group and Bushwick Bill, and he's told stories of listening to their music growing up. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have known who he was, but my hubby keeps me informed on these things. In other sad news, Dr. John, legend of New Orleans, has also died. He was 77. He was a guitarist, piano man, jive talker, and psychedelic godfather. His name was Malcolm John Rebenak, although he was better known as Dr. John. He died on Thursday of a heart attack. Turns out his age was actually only discovered, or at least disseminated, late last year. In his fantastical 1994 autobiography, Under the Hoodoo Moon, Dr. John had declared his birth date as just before Thanksgiving 1940. But in a column for the Times-Picayune published in November 2018, author John Wirt unearthed a birth announcement from the same paper 77 years earlier. Mac, as he was colloquially known, was actually born November 21st, 1941. The factual fluidity was, in its way, appropriate to an artist who lived and worked in the shifting, hip space of the trickster, and also to one who was as iconic of New Orleans as Louis Armstrong, to whom his final album, 2014's Skadat-Da-Dat, or The Spirit of Satch, was a tribute. In fact, Armstrong's real birthday was misrecorded for decades as well. So we have had 2 deaths in 2 very different genres, but 2 people who were very influential in their own personal fields. And I'm sure that they will both be missed in the music world. One more quick, well, not really a story, but we'll look at the upcoming music releases for this week. The music releases of June 14th, 2019. Those come to us, let's see, from Bad Books. The Roman numeral 3, Baroness, Golden Grey, Bastille, Doom Days, Bill Callahan, Shepherd in a Sheepskin Vest. That's just wrong, Shepherd in a Sheepskin Vest, although I guess probably pretty common. Bruce Springsteen's new album, Western Stars, Iron and Wine, Calexico, Years to Burn, Kate Tempest, The Block of Traps and Lessons, Luke Nelson and Promise of the Real. Their album is Turn Off the News, Build a Garden. Not bad advice, frankly. Madonna has a new album coming out this week, Madam X. Mattiel, Satisfactory. It's 2 words, Satisfactory. Old Man Ludecky, Easy Money. The Chris Robinson Brotherhood, Servants of the Sun. Two-Door Cinema Club, False Alarm. Ex-Ambassadors, Orion. Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, Black Star. Curious as to which ones of those you are most excited about, and which ones maybe you're intrigued by or have never heard of. You can always let me know your thoughts on any episode by hitting me up on social media. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'd love to hear from you. That's going to wrap up this episode of the GSMC Music Podcast. Please join me again next week, and we'll explore what's happening in the world of music.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.